So, with the next speaker, we move into a segment of this conference that is deeply meaningful to me and my wife personally. Because you may find that, particularly the younger folks, when you're starting out with your family, I think most people have this experience. There are certain families that you know who are a little farther down the road, who are kind of your model, right? And you follow, you see what they're doing. It looks like it's going very well, and you follow. At least that was our experience. And the next two speakers those were our family. So I'll first talk about Pat Fagan. I met Pat. I happen to remember exactly when I first met Pat. One of the few things I remember at all is it was 1988, and Amy and I had just had our first child. He was a little baby, and we got roped into going to a parenting conference in Canada for like a week, and it was a blast. But Pat and Teresa Fagan were there, and I thought he was extraordinary, and it's like, wow, I need to listen to him and do what he says. And so for 35 years, I've been listening to Pat and maybe not doing what he says. That's the problem, but I'm at least listening. So Pat Fagan, who was not born in this country, as you will detect when he starts speaking. He is from Ireland, has done almost everything that you could imagine in life, from grade school teacher, clinical therapist, specializing in child, family, and marital therapy. He has worked in politics, in the government. He is the founder and director of the Marriage and Religion Research Institute at originally at the Family Research Council. That has now moved over to the Catholic University of America. Pat, nobody loves a good chart or graph more than Pat Fagan. He's a man of science. He has authored more than 30 synthesis papers, whatever that might be, and commissioned dozens of original research projects in marriage, family, and child development and religious practice. So he does know what he's talking about. Pat and his wife Teresa have 8 children, at least 2 or 3 of whom are here today, so you can check with them. And 12 grandchildren. Is that still the correct number? No. 18 grand. You got to update your website, Pat. 18 grandchildren. And he is, all right, even though you didn't bring your wife, he is going to be speaking on how to get to we in marriage.
I want to introduce Tom sometime. Watch out. Yeah. Well, when Teresa heard the topic I was talking about, she said, "There's no way I'm showing up." By the way, how long do I have now that with this?
You've got 30 minutes.
Good. Okay. That's fine. Just want to know what to do. Okay. I love the way the talks are going, actually, because there's a lot of weaving between them, and I just continue it. In the absence of culture, actually, there's a huge amount, all of us living, and our kids, and even our grandkids, are going to have to do a huge amount more work on marriage and family life than our ancestors did, because all of our ancestors grew up in relatively stable, well-developed cultures. And cultures actually are really the way people have learned to live. And most people are totally unaware of it, It's so powerful, it just carries you along. It's a bit like the Atlantic current. You know, you just put a ship somewhere down in the Caribbean, give it a sail, or even without a sail, and in 6 months' time, it'll be off the coast of Ireland somewhere. It just gets pulled along. That's what a great culture does, and takes care of a huge amount of the decision-making. You don't have to do it. Also provides you a vision of where you're heading, what old age is like, what middle age is like, how you raise your kids, how you court, how you marry. You know, all of those things were done for our ancestors, worked out over centuries. Now each one of us has to individually do it. You've got to rethink all the stuff because the culture around us collapsed, partly because of the pace of technology, and partly because of bad people doing very evil things and learning how to do them brilliantly. And you can see it happening all around us. But within that, actually, one of the key, this central relationship in every society ever, including every society today, in every culture, in every religion, the foundational key relationship is marriage. Because out of a good marriage comes all the goods. Marriage is designed, it's the vocation to give life and prepare others for life. And actually your vocation, by and large, you can shorthand it, and we don't have to worry about the priests or the numerries or the other celibates because they're taken care of in what Father Carter Griffin just said. Your vocation is to prepare your kids for a great marriage. And if you do that, when God calls some of them, they'll answer easily. Within marriage, actually, the power of marriage, I learned it in my first 3 years up in Canada as a therapist. By the third year, a lot of the referrals were kids in their mid-childhood, and the typical referral was, Pat, would you have a look at the kid? It's not medical, I think it's psychological. And that was either the pediatrician or the family practitioner. So by the third year, I wouldn't see the kid like I'd see the whole family, and after a couple of sessions, I'd peel the parents away and work on where I knew the conflicts were. And I look back at my case histories later, and more than 90% of the kids, I never had to do a single thing with them. Heal the conflicts, children thrive again. Symptoms disappear. Marriage is massively powerful. And the unity within the marriage is what's powerful. I would sum it up and say, look, you can benignly neglect your kids. You forget everything Pat, Elena, and Father Griffin said, if you take fantastic care of each other. They'll just thrive on it. It is the sun, moon, and rain that your kids need, the unity between you. So here are some ideas. And by the way, none of this is for you. All of this is for me. And Teresa has seen these notes. You should see what I've got facing me when I have to live up to my words, and she's going to remind me of that so often. God bless her. Okay. I'm going to cover 3 areas. I got about 6 main points. 3 of them are simple and then 3 are much more complex because they're really about relationships. And relationships ultimately are a mystery. They really are. And relationships are the relationship between soul and soul. They're in the spiritual domain, even though we're embodied. We're in spirited bodies or embodied spirits. But a relationship is that spiritual connection between us. And we all know exactly where relationships are. You know whether it's going up or going down. And your wife knows the very same thing, or your husband knows the very same thing. You've got a fairly accurate idea how well your relationship is doing. And you always want to keep trying to push it back up and rescue it from the stupid things you've done. And that's ongoing forever. So look, one of the first things, a very concrete, simple thing that'll help you immensely. It helped me, it's fairly recent. Jordan Peterson and a bunch of other Harvard guys developed a personality assessment test. That's the most widely used one in the world now. And it's dirt cheap, and you can get it online. I did it a couple of months ago. And I got the printout. Oh, I don't want to. Actually, you can get it for both of you. And if you both do it, you get a third thing, which is where they overlay it. And then they'll show you the things that will come easy to you because of where your personalities sort of line up easily, and the things that are going to come difficult to you. And you get the whole 3 for about $20. That's dirt cheap in this area. Okay, I get it. I got mine back, and a lot of it I sort of, by my age, I'd figured out a fair bit. But there were 1 or 2 things that were in there. One in particular, I said, my goodness, that's me. So I handed the assessment to Teresa, and I said, she read it, and she said, yeah, that's you. They hit you right in the neck. I just said, but what about that part? Oh, yeah, that's I never knew that about myself. It was totally, I won't tell you what it is, but there's a lot to work on, I can tell you. Okay, I honestly suggest one of the simplest, most straightforward things, you get more insight on yourself than, in years of spiritual direction and all the rest of it, this area just, and my goodness, plenty of grist for confession for years to come. Okay, second very concrete area, and it's one of the most practical, one of the things that will bring little disunities and maybe even big ones out into the open that need to be taken care of. And it's so important. I think we should suggest to all couples who are engaged to begin to do this even before they get married, and that is get unity on a budget. Your budget is one of the most every family, every business, every family, every anything needs a budget. Secondly, within that, there's an anecdote that say, live below your means, which means in your budget you'll always be saving a bit. And it's not, saving is good, very good, immensely needed. But living below your means is needed even more. And your kids need that even more than you do. Because one of the things, we are so wealthy now, we think we're not. But the world has increased in wealth. And by the time our grandkids are in middle age, the world will be, it seems, 4.3 times wealthier than we are today. The growth in wealth is ongoing. As a result, most of our kids have an easy life. And they're ill-prepared for the toughness that you need to be alive. So it is a great gift to your kids to live well below your means and make it a bit tough for them, not to be tough on them, but to make them tough. You have to, of course, yourself live below your means. Now, there's all sorts of ways you can do that. The car, you ramp it down a bit. The holidays, you do it something simpler. The house you're in, you get it smaller. By the way, Dave Ramsey is great on all this stuff. You want a guide? Go to Dave Ramsey. Follow it all. It'll make a saint out of you. or you'll be a good way along. Very practical. The unity that comes out of that. I learned a lot of that from... I was impressed immensely by one of my son-in-laws who practiced this right from the get-go. And it's huge in its impact. But I've seen it all around the place all the time. And you hear it often. That one of the biggest causes for divorce are, arguments over money and disunity. So getting unity on that is so many goods that can come out of it. Now I'm going to get into the a little bit more complex things of relationships. Having problems is part of being human. Problems in relationships are infinite and eternal. Okay? They're always there. Because they're two different people. We have limitations, we have strengths, but we've got very different family backgrounds, and very frequently, particularly in this part of the world, we come from different cultures. Sometimes we even have had different religious backgrounds. Sometimes we even still have different. All of those things make for getting unity and solving problems easily more difficult. a common way that good people take care of problems is by giving in. Or one essentially, okay, keeping their mouth shut, I can live with that. And that's good. But I don't think it's good as a universal practice, because essentially what you're doing is suppressing frustration and not working things out. So I'm just going to give you a metaphor. There's so much that we've done in this. I think there's a good book. It's not perfect, or it's very good in itself. There are no imperfections in it. But it's not a perfect answer for this, but it brings you 3/4 of the way down the road. It's called Crucial Conversations, well known in business centers, but also very useful in marriage. I forget the guys, it's dual authorship, but Crucial Conversations. And you can even watch YouTube videos of it. You can read the book in 30 minutes by hearing the authors go back and forth, and then you can buy the book. But the metaphor I give to you, look, you know that in making a child, bringing a child into existence, you both make a contribution, huge contribution. Mother's, of course, much bigger in every way. But you create something totally new, and it's a new creation, absolutely unique, idiosyncratic, this child, son or daughter. Well, actually, the problem solutions are analogous to that. Absolutely unique, coming out of you, but coming from neither of you saying, okay, I'm going to give in here, where you say, look, he proposes something, and she essentially is saying, no, this is a better way. And he says, no, why didn't you see this? And they try to make each other see the goodness of the other, and then finally they realize, we don't have unity on this yet. Good. Now your work begins. How do you explore it? How do you hammer and anvil it till you both arrive at something that both of you have created and that both of you can buy into? That's all I'm going to say on that. But it's a fundamental skill, habit, virtue. Like there's a whole lot of virtue involved in coming to that. The marriage that has that is a happy marriage, because you got agreements and you've learned how to turn problems. Well, most of us can do a fairly decent job of problems, but it's the problems where you're inclined to suppress and not be totally happy with. They're the ones to really put this effort in. And one of you says to the other, okay, I don't think we got a solution here. Time to make a new baby. And the new baby is this creative, I call this creative negotiation. You're creating something absolutely new. Okay, Darrell can put on a workshop sometime, and I won't speak at it, but he can get it, and you could do it all on creative negotiation, and it'd be well worth it. Next practical area in the relationship one is one you all know of. Actually, a synthesis paper, by the way, Tom, you remember he was introducing me, I hadn't got the foggiest. A synthesis paper, they're brilliant, actually. It makes me look good because I just pull in all the good ideas of somebody else, put them together, and it looks like I wrote it. But actually, there's none of the ideas are mine. They're all somebody else's. That's a synthesis paper, drawing on the research of others. Here, the thing that you hear time and time and time again is affirmations. To affirm, to build up your spouse. But men need building up by their wives in a totally different way than the wives need building up by their husbands. And look, ladies, your husband is your biggest child. Okay, yeah, you knew it. And actually, guys, I think, are relatively, compared to you ladies, us guys are simple creatures. Relatively easy to take care of us. 3 things: good food, good bed, and affirmation. And by affirmation, the affirmation each guy wants from his wife. But it has to be grounded in real realities. And this takes some study on your part so that what you say is true. You figure out the areas in which he walks on water, in your estimation, and you let him know he walks on water. He wants to hear that from you. But it's got to be grounded in reality, not puff. He'll recognize that. We all recognize, fluff and puff. There are things your husband does that are great, that you love. Let him constantly know that. If in your eyes, he thinks that in your eyes he walks on water, he will die for you. And if he isn't prepared, it's because you haven't done that. So figure out, bring it to prayer, talk about it with your friends. It'd be great for them. This is women to women, It'd be great for all the women to be talking about how to figure out this. Right, guys? They spend a huge amount of time. Women are the experts on relationships. Why? Because they spend 3/4 of their lives talking about it. And us guys, we're lucky if we spend 1% of a year, once in our lifetime, talking about relationships with another guy. Okay. So affirmation. Now, for the guys, I think, and I'm open to correction here because I'm a guy, and no guy really understands women. None. None of us do. We sort of make attempts and guesses at it, how to do it. Yeah, I remember as about an 18, 19-year-old figuring out, look, women are so complex. I haven't got the foggiest what they're about. So I think what I'll do is just treat them as best I can, a good friend, a guy. It's totally wrong sort of thinking. But however, what women find very affirming, and it's tapping into what they want, is our listening to and drawing out not just their emotions, because I think I have come to respect emotions not as different from thoughts and insights. Actually, in my book, emotions are condensed knowledge, information, all condensed so much into one package, and it ends up as a dominant emotion. And the big work is to unpack it, because there's huge insights and realities there, and women are very good at packing all that stuff together, much better than us guys. We sort of see one thing, and we're designed that way. See one thing, go after it, deliver it, and die in the effort if you don't get it. That's why the Spartan women said, come back with your shield or on it. Very simple, and that's the way we're designed. Women much more complex. So listening to them, further emotion, and drawing it out of them, and being with them, and letting them talk to us. That's heart to heart, not heart to head. We're using our head to draw out her heart. Maybe she's got 5 or 6 hearts in there she's trying to separate them. And I think we come close when we do that. We affirm when we listen. But listen not to the words, but listen to her heart and what's going on. And the third area, you can get a bit practical here on relationships, and that is on dates. I think there are 3 types of dates, 3 dates you ought to be regularly having. One is daily, and Pat and Elena already covered that. Remember when they were talking about they have their 15 minutes after the supper, that's their daily date? Every couple needs a daily date. And if you have young kids, it's very hard to get it in. If you've got 3 or 4, or 5 or 6, or whatever, it gets rather difficult. But if you don't have that 15 minutes, at least, into your day, somehow or another your planning is wrong and your priorities are wrong. If you don't have time for each other in the day, somewhere in your planning and priorities, things are not in proper kilter. You need time to feed each other. And it's a mini date. 15 minutes becomes a sacred time. I love the way Pat and Elena, their kids already sort of are adapted to that. The whole family is. Different couples will do it totally different ways. But figure out how to do that. The second is actually, I think, a weekly date. Now, this is harder to pull off. I know that, depending on the age of the kids. But in this weekly date, it's really playtime. Actually, in a whole other area, on parenting for men, the way I'd sum it up, if you want to be a great father, is play with your kids. And you say playing with them all your life. We're made to play. We're born play. We're, as soon as we can. Well, you know, you just watch the youngsters here. There's some too young yet to crawl. But as soon as they crawl and then walk, thereafter, it's play. For the next 10 years, 20, 30 years, all they want to do is play. When we get married and take on the burdens of marriage and family life, you know, it gets a bit heavy. You know, and the play sort of, oh, I wish I could play, but that's gone. You need to play. And actually, in the bedroom, and that's a cover word for marital stuff and all, but in the bedroom, actually, it really is play. And if in the bedroom it's not play, you've lost. So let me structure something for you. Before you were married, and before it could end up in the bedroom, you put a huge amount of effort into attracting each other and taking care of each other and making the evening good for each other. Like the guy put thought into, okay, I'm asking her out on a date, and he actually paid some attention to the way he dresses. Maybe for the first and last time in his life, but he did to pull you in. And he put thought into how the evening would go. And ladies, you put thought into how you looked, how you dressed, how you smelt, what you wore, how it coordinated, what you do, how you smiled, you tested yourself in the mirror and all the rest, all so that that evening could be a great evening of play between you. And that's courtship. Now, a happy marriage, the couple has learned the secret of constantly courting each other, at least once a week. And you can have these dates, and I think you put the same sort of preparation into them. You don't even have to go out. You may not have the money to go out, but you can still do it up in the bedroom, and you can put a lot of preparation into it. And ladies, you can dress up. And there's no kids in the room, and you can figure out how you're going to dress down. I only say it once, that's it. That's the ultimate end. You know, everything. At this stage now, you're married, and the date can end up where when before you were married, you wished it could have ended up there. Now it can. For heaven's sake, make use of it. Enjoy it. Okay. Once a week, put thought into that. Imagine if every week for the next year, you had a date night. The difference it would make to your marriage. Imagine a couple who does that every week for 5 years. Imagine a 50-year-old couple starting to do this and doing it for a year. The difference in their marriage by age 51. Imagine this 77-year-old guy. Well, I will be 77 in 3 weeks, so I keep anticipating. This guy doing it with Teresa for the next year. A date night every week. Imagine everybody in this room doing that. Now, the kids in there are great. Actually, I was, between the last talk, Pat and Elena, I went down there, and actually they're doing fantastic. It's amazing. So you're raising great kids. But the strength of your kids is identical to the strength of your unity. That's what they pick up from you. That's how they learn to marry. That's how they learn to court. That's how they learn to adore God. The more you love, they know that God's love is so much higher than that. But you've given them real love. Real human love. I don't know how many men, clinically, you hear this from priests, you hear from clinicians, doctors, and all the rest, who don't trust God because they never experienced real love in their family. and particularly from their father if it's male. And I'm sure that it's much the same on the female side, though women are much more likely to love their kids than men are. But us guys, keep in mind, your family is as strong or as weak as you are strong or weak. We are the ones who make the family absolutely great or cause it to be weak. Now, our wives do too, but they're much more likely. They're made, their whole bios, everything about them, psychologically, physically, emotionally, everything, is to care for kids. But that's one of their weaknesses too. Because the kids, in caring for the kids, they can learn to forget to take care of their biggest kid. And actually, when you married, you choose someone to take care of. You didn't choose your kids. You chose your spouse. And that's the one relationship of love that is the most important one in your existence, the one you choose, and God help me, the one you're going to answer to God for. More than any other relationship. Because everything else depends on it. And this is why the enemy has actually gone after marriage. That's what all that external stuff is about. This is the source, the human source, and then with the church, we sanctify it, we make it divine as well, out of which comes all the rest. Your marriage. Your vocation is to raise your kids in such a way they're going to be great spouses. And you start talking about that. Actually, there's great fun you can have around the table with your teenagers. And it's getting into, and if there's brothers and sisters, all the more fun. Imagine this: you plant the question. You know, what makes for a woman to be a good wife? How will you recognize a girl at college who could make a good wife? Now you imagine teenage boys and girls beginning to play with that one. It can be a riot. But you're also preparing them. You're preparing them for college. Huge amount of marriages are made there. That's where the selection often begins. So it's needed. Okay, the third date, and this is not so much a date as a management one, you need a time where you get together on managing the family. It can be as short or as brief, it depends on how much managing needs, but you need a regular time. Once a week would be great, once every 2 weeks at minimum. Now, we've been much more inclined. I said the other two dates, one daily and the other weekly, and I put the management one possibly down every 2 weeks because the relational is much more important than this. But this is very important too because that's how there's order in your family and not chaos. And order is a great gift of love, and chaos is a lack of love. Okay, the last point I want to make, and I have 47 seconds to make it, and this is using your imagination and using it together. In the absence of culture, what's in front of us isn't clear. If we were living in the Middle Ages in Ireland or England, we've got a lot of literature on the English, and you could see the weave and woof of the year and the week, you know, the festivities and all the rest, and how people grew old and all the rest. All of that was essentially laid out for us, and we just moved into it. We don't now. You have to create your own future together, working it out. And I come back to Jordan Peterson again. He's got another thing that I think you could adapt to here. It's called self-authoring. Just put Jordan Peterson self-authoring, you get it. And it's about $20 for both of you to do it. You can do it individually, you can combine it. He has developed this for people to sort of work on their own future. You can easily adapt it together, working on both your futures together. And it's a great guide. Your intentions and your imagination and being able actually to concretize that more and more is very powerful. The big neglected resource we have our intellect, we have our will, and we have memory. But the one that really gives massive boost to them is your imagination. And if you develop your intentions, gradually figuring out the sort of long-range future you want together for you as a couple and your family, and then put pictures on it so that you can actually picture it, and they're your intentions, you've massively helped your intellect. Now, your intellect and will are involved in making it, but once made, it's then a huge booster. You know that. You know all the science that's coming out more and more on the effect of imagining. Actually, harnessed well, actually, that's what hypnosis really is. It's using the imagination. That's what good hypnotists are really good. All you're doing is harnessing the imagination. Massively neglected. Use it, and it's great fun to do it together. So there you have it. And I've got my homework with Teresa. And the pity is, all this is being recorded, so she's going to be able to hold me to every single word.
Thank you very much.